Давайте гостеприимный павильон. Так, вот одно место там есть.
Так, я Паша туда. Я сяду сюда. Так, удобно вас смотрите на это.
Не стесняйтесь, пожалуйста.
Так он выучит русский за кайф. Учи.
Здесь? Да, пожалуйста, это для вас. Да, забронировано. Окей. Камера мы можем... Like this camera?
Вот я все сам.
Are you? So, you know, very much needed. Very much needed. Yeah, and I hope bigger tradition, create more scene as I said, I have some like close around. This is really not the candy. Founders are here, but they're very dispersed. So we have one founder here, but she has to be a space. She has to take much more. So he's like, founders wrong. But then, how did you work there? Yeah, that's a good one. There was like a startup podcast, so it was around why the so thanks guys. Yeah, guys from Sabah. I want to introduce you to a investor from the US. Learn a bit more about what you guys are going to be your reward. He's going to invest in the startups. Yeah, just come over. Yeah, we still have time, so. Yeah. So, can you tell more about your work?
Sonra da bu benim gönderdik var. Overall ortamı gönderdik. Sen biraz gözle. Onlardan al ama gözle bu burayı şey yap. Aksiyon. Julia. Julia. Uğur Nece sen yazmış. Ne olacak onda? O ama çok var ona ya.
Да, вот мне очень интересно. Поскольку я знаю Фарруха, и я его же повысили, он раньше был.
Повысили?
Да. Ну, типа... I think they're going to start very soon.
Oh, sorry, we're waiting for the. What's yours? He said he's coming.
Can you test?
Yes, yes.
Are you a speaker?
He's gonna announce he's gonna be on the
Okay. We're ready to go.
Hello, everyone. I think we should start now. We're still waiting for one panelist to come. So today we have an esteemed panel. We're very grateful for Azerbaijan to host this COP. We are super excited for the conversation that we're having today. So we had in mind how the regional cooperation can be actionable, what measures shall we take so that the academia, private and public sector work cohesively together. So this is why on this panel we have our esteemed guests, representatives of IDDA, of the Mohammed bin Zayed University, Dr. Hosni, AnaMaria, very well established investor from Saudi Arabia, and Laura Fox from US. So we would like to hear your ideas about different angles of cooperation, and soon Mr. Farrukh from PASHA Holding is also joining us. He's coming from the next panel. So I will start with questions to IDDA, to Aga Hussein. So can you kindly tell me, so Azerbaijan has taken a very fast pace as an innovator in the region, in the Caspian region, in Central Asia. I would say the measures and the investments that you're deploying in the sector are quite impressive. So what are the specific sectors that you as Azerbaijan can think you can lead further on?
No, thank you. Great question. It definitely has different angles to it where to uncover and be able to answer it in the best way possible. But sort of we've seen historically, again, we've been operating for almost 3 years. Yes, we've been fast. The team came from corporate background, really appreciate the speed over just peculiarities, but of course it's government. There are certain ways we need to operate to make sure that we don't think of ourselves as corporate, but we're actually government. So what happens is we've been very horizontal and not much going into verticals, because in a nascent markets like this, you need to pick and understand what we have at hand, and then how we can connect those together and see where the gaps are to eventually build up the governance. So by the end of the 3 years, of course, we have now funds, we have capacity building programs across the board. On the digital development side, we've impressive progress on developing tech solutions that, we have more than 1 billion paper operations that we automated within a very short period of time, saving 10,000 trees a year. So this is really good progress that we're taking right now. For the further down the line, what we believe is important and how we would pick a vertical is, and this is an exercise we go through right now. So one is definitely understanding your geopolitical situation. That will definitely impact a lot on what verticals you want to pick. I'll throw an example. Cybersecurity would be definitely an area where we would like to double down and really be strong at. So that's why sort of you can think of investments, capacity building, tech, and all the other resources to go towards that. Government tech is big because, and we're a bit biased on that front because we are one of the main drivers of tech. So we definitely want to make sure that government is digitalized, but not only on the government level, but also government to business, government to citizen. And that's we try to sort of do through the apps and technologies that we're building inside. That's probably number two. Of course, COP is a big event, and we are, as a country who has a legacy of even establishing the oil industry, like the very first oil extraction in the world happened in Baku in Azerbaijan. So that's definitely an interesting legacy to go through. We're now living through a cycle of so how you can become a non-oil country and diversify yourself from that, but using that as a potential source to eventually become a greener place to be. So that's definitely one area we'll go. It's a long shot, but we're definitely going to that direction. And there's definitely way more that we try to explore. I'm not going to mention AI. Everyone is doing AI anyway. AI is, my opinion is very, you can go vertical, but it's, as an essence, AI is a very horizontal. Everyone will use it at every area, direction, function, business unit, whatever you name it, right? It will be everywhere. So yeah, that's what we do.
It's good that you didn't dive deep into AI because it's definitely the question to our next speaker. So Dr. Hosni, I have a very, very extensive question for you. As one of the pioneers in GCC, in UAE in particular, you are not just one of the people who were at one of the founding fathers of different technology sectors in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. Could you please, first of all, highlight the journey that you've went through and how it can be helpful to Azerbaijan, who is now trying to take the baton of the tech leadership in the country, and definitely about the endeavors that you and your university are doing in AI and incubation of startups.
Thank you. Already, I see a lot of synergy between UAE and Azerbaijan. Both of them are oil-producing countries, and then they have the strong commitment as well to diversify the economy and to other sectors, and where the AI can play a role in this. Just to summarize the journey of the UAE, I started one of the first, I think, GCC country. I think they have the first minister of AI that was nominated in the UAE government in 2017. And now we saw many countries, they start nominating someone at the government level that oversee the AI deployment in the government sector. And so the AI ministry is mainly on working the policies in putting policy incentives for all government entity to embrace AI-based and AI-driven technologies. From the other side, to complete the ecosystem, the R&D and research is very important component, and this is where the university is playing a role in this. So we were the first university graduate level AI in the world. Now we have almost 600 scientists, all expert in AI, working under the same roof. It's offering master's and PhD program. We have students from 50 countries, and we have students from Azerbaijan. And by the way, they are very well performed students. They get their degree here in computer science. They're doing their master's and PhD in machine learning, computer vision, NLP, and more recently we have robotics as well. So in addition to the R&D ecosystem that is very important to support this government effort, to train also the workforce needed to complete the whole ecosystem. And also the industrial network is very critical because you have to create job opportunity for your students, and also you have to have a driver for the deployment. So as I agree with you that AI now is getting horizontal and also vertical, different sectors. So for our research, we have three major priority areas. So the energy is one of them, covering energy transition, from decarbonization, of the energy sector, and also it has a component of the climate mitigation as well. We have the healthcare is also one of the area of interest of our research activities, and also we have education, how AI can be integrated in education. So now, if you take the UAE as examples, so we have this the big company now that valued in more than $7 to $10 billion. Talking about Group 42 and G42, with different entities, with the Space 42, with the Cloud 42, they are covering many sectors and supporting the government effort for the AI integration. And also for us, most of our students are graduate students are recruited by Group 42 as well. We have students from 50 countries, so it's open for all international students. We offer also very generous scholarship system. All admitted students have free tuition. They get like stipend, fellowship, travel covered. They get $3,000 per month as stipend. So it's very generous one. So managed to attract top students from many countries, from 50 countries. And also professors are coming from top universities. We have professors from Berkeley, from Harvard, from Cambridge, from all of them. We managed to convince them to make the move to Abu Dhabi for two reasons, because we offer unique opportunity on computing resources for the faculty, access to students, very high quality students, and also a research fund that can help them in developing their research activities as well.
Thank you very much for your perspective, Dr. Hosni. It's very, very interesting what you do, and we will be very interested to explore the further cooperation between the regions. AnaMaria, next question goes to you. So as a seasoned investor, you work with family offices and funds in US, in EU, in Switzerland, and now you chose GCC, particularly Riyadh, as your home base, and you see a variety of startups. But my question would, as an investor from, let's put it, Western world, and having a perspective on emerging markets, on GCC, and understanding what's essential for the startups to work, for the ecosystem to grow. So what would be your take on this? How do you see the countries can cooperate? And just another few words about the regional cooperation.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I put it like this. So great to be here. I'm very excited. Actually, first time I come to Baku, and I cannot believe I missed out in all my life to not be here. So I need to stay here a little bit more. I would say definitely when it comes to the GCC, I moved to Saudi because I think Saudi is definitely the new frontier. The market, it's growing a lot. There's a lot of companies there. There is a lot of boom in everything. As you know, the giga projects, of course, are there. So definitely from an investment point of view, this is a great place to be. The purchase power is very high. The talent is moving there. So there's a lot of opportunities. Now, valuations are very crazy, I would say, in Saudi Arabia. So that's something that startups need to look at. And that's obviously been fueled because there's a lot of support from the ecosystem, from the government, which is great because you need that support to move. And I think that's what's happening here also in Azerbaijan, right? There's a lot of accelerators, incubators, funds, as it was mentioned. So that is needed in the beginning. Switzerland did the same. I worked for the Swiss government, same concept, a lot of boom and a lot of interest from the government to push companies. But at some point that's going to stop. And that's where the private sector comes in, right? So I think the number one thing that is needed is big companies like Group 42 and all of those to really come in and collaborate with the new startups that are coming in the market. It's very difficult for startups, right, to get clients. And sometimes startups focus a lot on getting investment. But I always say, like, focus on getting clients instead of investors, and that's going to bring you the investment. So I think that's something very important that companies need to open a little bit more. We see now in Saudi with the Giga project, a lot of companies are trying to open funds or opening a little bit some programs that we can work together. So that's one. Then the second thing, access to funding in general. I think that's a general thing for funds as well as for startups, because also funds are raising. So I think we forget that sometimes. We're always looking at people that like yourselves that are having funds, that they are also going out there and raising and pitching the same things so that they can invest in the startups and make it happen. So definitely access to capital everywhere, but also in the terms of access to patient capital. We need a lot of patient capital out there. A lot of people are looking for that quick return. They're giving the money, they're pushing you to come back. I understand this is a game, but the patient capital is going to bring you a long way. And that's why government capital works, because government capital is patient capital. And the last thing I would say is like anything to do with legislation to make it easy for investment. Sometimes you go in a country, I'm originally Albanian, and I have a lot of friends they're saying, oh, I want to invest in Albania, but like, do you know a lawyer or what's the legalization? So if it's not easy, people will not come and actually invest. And it's the same. And I think UAE has done a great job to doing that. Saudi is on the way to changing a lot of laws for that. So I would say making the legislation easy for everyone to come. As an angel investor, you don't have to be a biggest shot investor in the region. Just with your private money, if that's easy, then you will be able to diversify yourself. So that's where I'll stop. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your perspective. Laura, my question will be quite similar. As an investor from US who is actually deploying capital, I would love you to give some practical advice on the strategies that companies from GCC or Azerbaijan, for that matter, should focus on, so that the stakeholders from the government here, from the funds that are incubating, can think how international investors are looking at emerging markets and new countries that are opening up, like Azerbaijan, for international technologies.
Get it off the shoe. Hey everyone, so great to be here. I couldn't agree more. It's been so phenomenal to be in Baku for the first time. I've loved seeing the city. And I think in terms of being a US-based investor, I thought one of the things I would speak about was just collaboration between these sectors that everyone has brought up, and two, that talk about startups collaborating with industry and industry really being the driver, and one maybe picking up on the point earlier about how government can actually be the driver in some of this and how we need to think about changes there. And so 3 quick case studies on that. You know, the city of Detroit in the United States has been a city that has long had huge population declines with established centers of industry and automotive and other sectors, but as you know, jobs moved away, moved internationally, you know, really lost their economic base. And there have been some really interesting assets that have come into that ecosystem and that for the first time have driven new population growth in Detroit, and all due to startup ecosystems and attracting founders with really unique assets and approaches. So the first is a company called Bedrock, which comes out of the family office of Dan Gilbert, who's the founder of Quicken Loans. They now own 20 million square feet in downtown Detroit and a third of all downtown Detroit parking lots. And so they've created this really interesting pilot to scale program to really help startups deploy for the first time in that ecosystem. And so for their building technology, which I think is the most innovative, they will help startups test in one building of a type. And so be it steam heat system, HVAC systems, et cetera, or multifamily or commercial. And if they're successful and hit a certain number of KPIs, they scale them across all buildings of that typology in their portfolio. And so they've set up an immediate pilot to scale on their own assets. And then there's another family/company, Ford Motor Company in Detroit, who has set up something called Michigan Grand Central. And that has set up actually a mobility innovation zone in a neighborhood in Detroit, which in the United States, we have a lot of kind of very constrained testing zones for how you pilot technology. And so this at a neighborhood level allows founders to test in a real world environment how they're using AI to test new street designs, EV charging and lampposts, and really work that through with the city, again, at this neighborhood level scale. And it's all supported through this specific program. There's startup co-working spaces. I can't tell you how many startups from New York have been moving to Detroit just because there's so much support and so many assets in the ecosystem. Second example I wanted to give actually has some resonance to Baku. It's the city of Tulsa, which in the United States long was driven by an oil and gas ecosystem and has a lot of assets as it relates to heavy industry in that way. And they set up actually similar to the example you were giving on Abu Dhabi, a Tulsa work remote program in which they paid founders to come and work remote in Tulsa for a year, gave them access to easy co-working spaces. There was a family foundation who set up a fund who invested in a lot of these companies. And now that program accounts for 1% of the entire population of Tulsa. And so really thinking about using startup ecosystems as a core drivers of economic growth and development. And then last example to give quickly, I live in New York, which traditionally has not actually been great for startups to work with. So I was really excited to hear the examples you were giving about how Baku and Azerbaijan is great at kind of bringing startups into the government ecosystem. That is the opposite of the case in New York. And so as part of an advisory committee for the city last year, where we worked with the city to help them understand what are ways to better work with startups, both from startups are selling to businesses, but just need help on procurement, permitting, what does that process look like? But even more importantly, if startups are selling to government, what can that look like? And how do we help them get out of what we call pilot purgatory, where a pilot project gets started and then you sit for 4 years in a pilot without real path to procurement. And so a lot of the insights from that work were things like, how do you create demand from government to the startup ecosystem to identify what are the things that you need help on, right? So it could be stormwater management, it could be like building decarbonization, because the city actually owns the most number of units, and could be lots of other areas. What are processes that you use? And then really specific procurement technologies and approaches like challenge-based procurement, where you allow someone to start with one building, kind of similar to the Bedrock example, and then scale quickly if they hit certain KPIs. And so I think just lots of different ways of bringing together these sectors and thinking about helping startups scale in a way that is applicable in US cities, and then I think, as we heard here, internationally in lots of different ways.
Thank you very much. I think it gives a very holistic approach, especially from someone from US. You have already went all the way, and definitely it's essential for us to keep the dialogue, to understand some bits of this history that sometimes are not clear, especially for those who are just paving the way. Farrukh, very good to have you here. So as CEO of PASHA Innovations, so we understand that as a soft power in this country, you have this driving ability alongside with IDDA agency and other governmental entities to drive forward innovations. In general, we would like to hear your vision, how you see it's possible, what are the priorities that and milestones that you identified for yourself, and maybe some actionable strategies that you will be deploying further.
Thank you very much. As the largest investment organization in Azerbaijan, we understand kind of responsibility that is on our shoulders. So our vision is, this is kind of a play where there is no competition. We actually work very closely with all the other parties to build ecosystem, because stronger innovation ecosystem, it also supports our organization, and we understand that. And in that respect, we work very closely with all the parties of the ecosystem, be it government, be it other public organizations, be it private organizations. And we're in a way setting a lot of examples to other private organizations, paving the way. On one example, we're closely working with the Innovation Agency. We're closely working with other ministries, Ministry of Digital Development, Ministry of Economy, with other players about how, and the purpose is building stronger ecosystem. So we do it two ways. One is, of course, building internally, driving innovation at the group level. And we have several initiatives internally, which is, one, we have internal incubation acceleration programs where employees of the group can apply and start their entrepreneurial journey. This way, we're boosting startup culture in the company, but also like creating internal startups. Two, we're working very closely with startups outside. This is where we are doing scouting mostly, and for scouting, we're building partnerships within the country, outside the country, with US, with UK, Europe, and Central Asian MENA countries. And we're attracting startups to work closely with us. That is two. And the third one, we're also like raising and of course like connecting the parties through different events. Like we are organizing every year the biggest innovation event, and if some of you haven't visited yet, I think next year this would be another good opportunity. It's called InMerge Summit. It actually brings together mostly regional players, and when I say region, it's Caucasus, Central Asia, MENA, and some Eastern European countries. But of course, it goes beyond the region. And externally, we do a lot of activities, as I mentioned, supporting the ecosystem. We understand we cannot do everything ourselves. That's why we're working. Like there is a lot of public-private partnerships, and here we focus mostly on talent building, building talent in the country. And there are several examples I can mention that For example, we launched the Cybersecurity Academy together with Technion University. We launched Holberton School. These initiatives are done together with the Innovation Agency, and we do a lot of similar activities focusing on building talent. In terms of financing part, we're also like behind many initiatives like launching the first venture capital fund in Azerbaijan. It's called Caucasus Ventures. A month ago, there was another regional initiative. It is Inmerge Ventures. It's another funding instrument which brings together players, actually corporate players from Turkey, from Azerbaijan, and creating an instrument for not only Azerbaijan, but for the region. So overall vision is building stronger ecosystem, and we believe this stronger ecosystem would also help us to grow our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my next question to all the panelists will be quite interesting because you will all give different answers. In the sense that here we have representatives from the private sector, from government, from academia. So I would like each of you to say to the other two. So for example, if you're the government, I would like you to say what do you need from academics, from universities, and from the private sector and finance instruments, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're academia, which support is needed from the government? How do you need to integrate with people? And of course, from international VCs is what else would be ideal in this region for the support and growth of the tech ecosystem?
Okay, I'll take it first. So I would probably put it as a framework of let's say a lesson on economy 101, where the first thing you would learn is demand and supply. And so what the problem for most of the ecosystems in the region, and that's not only our country, but just broader in this geography, is that most of the time, if you look at an ecosystem and you ask, what are you doing? You can see all of them talking about creating events, programs, funds, like institutions, whatever. But unfortunately, most of the time, they fail to answer what demand they're serving. So you can frame it as like, everyone is good at copying supply. And you can even look at startups, like, I mean, it's not bad to have a copycat. It's still good that there's a proactiveness and you can see interesting business models to replicate somewhere. It is still a supply game. You don't think of the demand side of the game. And so demand is an empty, unknown, dark place that it really needs to be uncovered. And so, and that's what can be created by private sector, that's for sure. Private sector can tell what needs they need to serve, to be served, so that potentially either internally the entrepreneurs can make it, or outside startups can come in and then try to serve that need. And then, of course, if you have enough goods and services produced, then VC funds will be in place. They know whom to invest. There's a natural deal flow coming to this. So there's a chain of things that needs to happen, but fundamentally it all comes from the demand. And so if all of us would sit down and crack our heads on what a demand is across the sectors, like all these verticals we mentioned, it's a path towards discovering the demand. So once we have good answers for this, that will dictate the rest of the whole chain. So.
I think what will be requested or required from the academia, from private and public sector, I think it's very important to keep the dialogue open, because for us, we are pushing our researchers, scientists to do applied research that has a tangible outcome that can benefit the community. And after what Farrukh mentioned earlier about the program and the incentive they're offering, I have some ideas about engaging students. We already have a dozen students from Central Asia. I think we have 4 or 5 students from Azerbaijan with us doing some research. We would love to have them, for example, doing their startup here in the region. And we can start this partnership at the early stage of their studies. At the same thing, we can, for example, if you have some startups that have potential, they want to go in depth about their education, so we can sponsor them, and then they can at the same time develop their research as part of the idea that they have here. So this kind of dialogue that we needed to have impactful research and also a tangible outcome that benefit the community and also benefit the scientific community as well.
From my side, I would say probably more collaboration with academia. So what we do is we learned this lesson in Switzerland. We saw one fund that just opened and they invested in their first deal. And actually that deal exited within just like 12 months or something crazy. It was very, very impressive. It was bought by a big company. And how they found the deal was in the labs. So they were PhD students and that's how they found. So we learned from this, okay, how can you go into the labs and find these deals, right? Because we look at the deals a little bit later and there's a lot of incredible stuff being done in academia, which maybe doesn't make it into companies because there's nobody there actually pushing these creations of the companies. So I would say more relations, maybe with the students that are there, professors and so on, to really kind of come from VC directly. We see a lot of academia government relations, but not so much VC academia relations, and probably there's something that we should start doing after this panel.
And I'll give requests to government and then to business. I think on the government side, it's easy as an entrepreneur to think of government as the boogeyman, I guess, in certain terms, right? Coming to shut down your startup. And that's oftentimes what I see as like a base antagonism built into startups in their interactions with government, which I think is wrong. Like we at Streetlife think the government can essentially be market makers, right? But you need to engage government in the right way. And so I think one of the biggest pain points for startups is when you've spent a bunch of time on R&D, maybe you were working in a lab, you're coming up with a new hardware prototype, and now you need to go and install it in the real world. So you've just spent a lot of money on research and development and time and team time. And then you go to government and you have to get a permit and they're like, what is this? No way. I'm not going to do this. And so I think some of the programs that I've seen that I love with government is ones that help almost play a translation role, because at the end of the day, governments and startups can almost speak a different language, and it can lead to differences of opinion and friction that doesn't need to be there. And so there have been a number of things that have allowed startups to do what's called pre-commercialization piloting. And I love pre-commercialization piloting because, you know, a lot of corporates who are willing to work with startups on their first commercial pilot and willing to take that risk just aren't willing to do pre-commercialization testing where, you know, startup's technology is still in an alpha stage of development, and essentially you just spend cost but don't get the benefit. And so I've seen a number of governments, you know, develop studio programs, happy to talk more about specifics if anyone's interested, that essentially allow startups to pilot these technologies using shared infrastructure at lower cost so that there can be learning between government and the startup about what's really needed. And then on the corporate side, I couldn't agree more on the demand point. That's one of the things that we really look for in terms of signal is, you know, what is the core pain point in industry that you are solving? And, you know, how does that create such friction for the buyer that they're willing to take action quickly? Because if a startup doesn't see that friction, then you're going to be stuck in sales cycles that can take a year, 2 years more, because there's no real incentive on the other side. And so I love this idea, and we oftentimes will, as a fund, set up what we call reverse pitches of industry coming and saying, what are the problems that they're trying to solve within a particular sector? So it could be energy, it could be real estate, water, you know, risk and adaptation products. So that startups can hear that and know who they should be speaking to and how to frame or adapt some of the technologies they're working on.
I'll comment on corporate side, demand side. I cannot agree more. And on our side, I think we're opening up and telling the pain points of the organization. The scouting that I mentioned before, this is actually exactly what we're doing, where we're telling our pain points to, and we're using several instruments to reach out to startups, to talk about our pain points and scout and find startups that can address our challenges. I'll tell about academia as well. It has been actually several years we have been trying to build this good relationship with academia, where we also believe that you know, academia is one major resource that can bring innovation to corporates. So we have been trying many times in the country, building relationship with the universities, academia, to address our challenges. It is yet long way to go, but we're very open there, and we're very open to partnering with academia in this respect. And to government, I think they are the last few years there is a huge noticeable difference. You can see the government is doing a lot. And in the countries like Azerbaijan, in the neighboring countries, government plays enormous role. Be it in the MENA countries, in the UAE or Saudi Arabia, government is the major player. And it's very similar here as well. We are taking one of the major roles in terms of private, but it's not enough. And the government plays an enormous role here. And the request would be one major thing, I would say, like regulatory challenges. It is actually one major barrier that actually hinders the innovation, be it in like how we're trying to, innovation always comes ahead of regulation. It's always like regulation has to catch up with innovation. And one request would be like creating some kind of testing environment or sandbox environment where it can be like separate approach to innovations in organizations like private organizations like ours.
And my last question will be on the cooperation between GCC and Azerbaijan as the country which is taking so much effort in development of the technologies. What you personally think? What are the next steps? Each of us will finish COP in a few days, inshallah. We'll go back to our offices and there will be some daily routine tasks. So for example, like my task will be create this partnership or some routine work. So you all have this task. So what they would be and what are the concrete steps that could be taken, similarities that are between Azerbaijan and GCC? How can we help each other right now?
Absolutely. Of course, the creativity has no limits. I guess you can think of a lot of directions to go through. The way I think about it is, I think we need to be very good at understanding what the strengths are for Azerbaijan and for GCC. One of the things that I personally see, and as someone who is doing investments, like very biased towards investments, we know we have a lot of capital, not necessarily allocated for this cause. So I think doing a lot of work and allocating capital, getting AUM up, make sure like we have enough capital to deploy to this kind of initiatives to eventually do all of the things that the colleagues have been mentioning here. So that's where I think GCC and our country can be really strong at. So I think funding is definitely one direction where collaboration needs to happen. Number two, I believe in GCC market, again, there's a huge potential to generate demand. And that will definitely be an interesting place to drive the talent. I mean, let's say in our case, we have scholarship program called TechNest. We're trying to educate thousands of people for skills of future, so that then they can go and serve the needs of the market. So that can potentially be the funnel where we could bring that talent and then plug it into the needs of the larger geographies, GCC. I would say the other angle to think through is Azerbaijan is a very strong place which can be a launch pad for CIS and Turkic world. It's pretty large geography. Again, Azerbaijan by itself may not be as large as of a market to be interesting, but as a location to use it as a launch pad and then become present in the region, there's probably no better place to go than Azerbaijan. So that's, I believe, where the collaboration can start. But of course, there's endless opportunities to collaborate.
If I talk about the UAE, because I already see many large collaboration projects between UAE and Azerbaijan. In the energy sector, Masdar has very strong presence here in oil and gas industry as well, the petrochemical as well. So I already see some ongoing collaboration. But the question how we can leverage on this, especially here we're talking about the innovation ecosystem. We can be creative in terms of engaging those partnerships. If you have, from our side, we can approach Masdar unit that is working here in the country. From your side, we can approach the entity, the counterpart from Masdar here. We can build up something that can help and can provide services or supports, or we can advise some startup to channel their innovation towards some end users and to leverage on this. And personally, I believe that given the very special relationship to UAE and Azerbaijan, and me personally, when we have some funds to cover some international collaboration, Azerbaijan is one of the top lists. Not because start with A, but one of the top lists in terms of country with, and I think you all agree with me that the affinity and the synergy between the two countries in many level. And His Highness was here in the opening ceremony of COP, and he's very close friend to the president. So for us, it's very easy to put together a joint program and to raise the funding needed to implement it. And this is how we see it from our side. So to summarize, so we have to leverage on the strong relationship to see how we can have a value proposition, how we can package ideas to make it attractive as part of the capacity building, as part of technology transfer, as part of strengthening relationship, as part of soft power. So this kind of idea that we can think about.
Yes. I think I'll just support your points, because actually what you said is very important. There's so many partnerships already in place, but activating those partnerships is really the key. Like we see so much launches of MOUs and programs, etc., and then we don't know where these programs go. And you made a great point. I mean, it's up to us now to go and find, okay, what programs were launched before and how can we actually do something and activate those programs. And the point on the talent also, I think is very important. There is so many opportunities in Saudi, in GCC in general, so many projects going on, so much talent here, so many startups. I mean, I met now so many startups this COP. Incredible. I mean, so many of those solutions are very much needed in the projects that I'm also working on and consulting. And maybe just showcasing when one goes back, like Eva said, you know, in all the communities that we're part of, really saying, hey guys, you should check out Azerbaijan. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there. I'm guilty of this myself. As I said in the beginning, I'm so ashamed for not coming before, but I'll make sure to come back again and more. But definitely even that, just saying this is happening and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. This is enough, I think, also to spark this idea in other people. So that definitely let's start activating some of the things that have already been done.
Thank you. I have lived in the Gulf in the past, in Qatar, but no longer. And so I think that the experts here in the panel can speak very well to so many parts of this question. I would just, advocate for funds as potential partners as we're thinking about expanding into other markets, be it GCC, US, or others, especially specialized funds in the area that your startup is looking to access. For example, we've spent 30 years in this space, and so we really help startups with everything from regulations, which are a major blocker in climate deployments, to your business model, like what is possible from a sales perspective for the customer that you're selling to. I can't tell you how often I see folks who are selling into real estate come with CapEx heavy models that have an OpEx heavy payback period, which don't work in the current market based on lack of CapEx in most real estate sectors, all the way to deployment partners, right? When you work in this space for so long, you both have a life's work Rolodex, but we also have a number of LPs in the fund who are excited to deploy different technologies. And I've financed assets in my past. My co-founder has financed projects. And so we really think about equity as a tool in the toolbox rather than trying to force feed equity to founders to get a certain stake. We really want to build viable companies. And so I think that as you're thinking about international expansion, you can think about partners that go globally, and then you can think about funds that can really help you accelerate and scale in a particular market.
I think GCC countries, they have been undergoing very similar process. They have been building the strong ecosystem, making their countries a center of innovation. And we are, the country Azerbaijan is also like going through the same process, building a stronger ecosystem. And I believe to multiply the impact of it, partnership across the borders is very important. I believe transferring know-how, like UAE have been going through this process for many years, and transferring know-how, it happens through partnership, building partnerships, starting new companies here, having joint projects. It actually also transfers know-how, and it multiplies the impact for both countries, for the whole region.
I want to thank all the panelists. I think we have 5 minutes left for Q&As. So please, if there is anyone who wants to ask our panelists questions, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here and to attend this session. My name is Sarah Osima. I work for Tanzania Meteorological Authority as a climate scientist, and I did presentation this morning on the innovation and technology in weather and climate services. I'm glad that this is kind of related. My question to you is that, is there any opportunity or plan for developing countries like Africa to get this knowledge? That, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the question. I think we'll start with the government.
Thank you very much for being here and for the question. So I guess not necessarily aware of the specificities of where you are and what kind of initiatives you do and where you come from. So I think that would be very helpful to sort of understanding where would be the best fit to build this kind of connection. And then of course you can further explore sort of what's going on here. I guess the best way would be maybe just really connecting, at least at the organizational level and individual level. For either, if you would like to connect with us, I'm happy to chat afterwards. And or in parallel, if you're visiting Green Zone, you can also visit our stand there as well. So our colleagues will definitely make sure that you get access to all the necessary info, and so you can learn what you can potentially do here. When it comes to overall, like how the know-how can be learned, I guess first of all, again, the background. Do you care about climate? Do you care about AI? Do you care about finance? Do you care about whatever vertical it might be? And then depending on it, of course, we have esteemed panelists here that can have their own perspective on how to support. And then number two, I think your country can be immense potential of providing some offerings to the world, right? So it may be talent, it may be funding, it may be some other or lobbying and promoting certain good causes that can change the world. So that's definitely important. So as long as that exchange is in place, I think that's a good starter.
So thank you for the question. We just have a session today about a program that we launched recently. It was a pledge that was made in COP28 between Bill Gates Foundation and the President of the UAE. So they pledged $200 million to help many African countries to integrate AI for food security and AI for weather forecast for 1 to 10 days, and also for season to season to help like low-income and middle-income countries to improve their resilience in terms of climate change. And this is, I think, one program that I can share the details with you. Maybe your country can benefit. Sorry, from which country? Because I didn't. From Tanzania. Okay. Yeah. So, so the folks in Asia and Central America and African countries, and it's a huge opportunity in terms of upscaling weather services, National Meteorological Services, and Ministry of Agriculture, how they can integrate AI for their day-to-day operation. Yeah, this is, as I said, this is the pledge that was made last year. It covers mainly a research component and also training component. So the training that might benefit, so the fund would be supporting participants from countries, low-income, middle-income countries, to come to Abu Dhabi for 1 week to attend like top training in AI for weather and for Ministry of Agriculture. For example, because season to season forecast is very challenging now with the physical based models. So the AI is making revolution on farmers to decide which crops they will be harvesting the next year, because we can tell with higher accuracy that next season will be more rain, less rain, so they can adapt their farming practices to this forecast. So this is the purpose of this program.
Just one quick contribution. I've been so excited to have adaptation be so much more a part of the conversation at this COP. We're one of the few funds that focus on adaptation, have invested in a few companies, but have also been surprised when I speak to a lot of folks, even who work at some of the biggest banks and insurance companies, that they have spent years, 3-4 years, building their own internal models. They don't like them, they're not working. And this is a place where I would say like there's an ability to leapfrog, right? So you could be building your own AI internal models, or there's a dozen startups that work in this space that are using global open source models to develop their weather forecasting and data, and be more agilely taking those insights and moving forward and creating the plans that you need to have in place now, rather than taking the years to do the core analysis itself.
Sure, more questions?
Thank you. My name is Mahdi. I'm a co-founder of Climate Action Initiative Central Asia NGO, and we're working on building the skill set of the youth in the region in terms of climate tech and green tech, because we see, I personally see that one of the blunders in the governments of Central Asia is that they bet a lot in terms of developing IT skills. We've heard about the programs of creating like 1 million coders in Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan. And I'm really curious, like what Dr. Hosni has mentioned as well. I see that we invest a lot in terms of IT building, and I see it as a ripple effect into the ecosystem. We see a lot of startups in fintech and edtech, but unfortunately, we don't see a lot of them in climate tech. And what do you think is going to happen next to Central Asian ecosystem? Is it the blunder that's going to get fixed with time as entrepreneurs mature? Or this is something that needs to be solved now? So in the future, we don't see only those IT startups, but we need to embed it into the DNA right now. Thank you.
Just quickly, because recently we have seen a boom on those new startups in the clean tech and the climate, and this motivated by government incentives, because it was made, I think the announcement was made last year of UAE investing $24 billion for decarbonization, and this opened the door to many ideas about what technology can be used for carbon capture to reduce the carbon footprint of your operation. And one project that we're involved in is decarbonization of the steel industry, because now in the European market is a requirement to have green steel. So you have to make sure that you be using energy, clean energy in your process. So it's very important to come up with some innovative ideas, and this is some niche of application. Talking about energy transition as well. I have seen many initiatives, especially in the UAE. We start to have large-scale PV plants, talking about 2.5, 3 gigawatt plants, and how AI and technology can be used to improve efficiency, to improve the predictive maintenance, to also to have a better forecasting of resources, to have stability on the grid. So there are many ideas, and I have seen many innovative ideas from startups that are getting. In Masdar, for example, we have the Catalyst programs, incubation program for green technologies. So they have a lot of incentive. I think we can share some ideas. Maybe it can be later on implemented here, because now, especially now the COP29 is being hosted in Azerbaijan. There is some commitment also from Azerbaijan government to commit for decarbonization of their industry as well. So there is some niche that can be leveraged on and can be explored.
Thank you so much for that. If I can just add 2 cents, maybe not on this, but really sometimes we see a lot of funds that are, or projects, right, that are opening for climate, and then people just start making startups around it, right? It's like, oh, like the AI discussion. So I think the demand point is very important. So sometimes if you maybe see a lot of fintech in a country like Saudi now has a lot of fintech going on, because it's normal, right? It's going into that direction. Later on, they will mature and they will go into another direction. And mature maybe is not the right word, but just what the country needs. So maybe also very important, yes, not to go into that direction where, okay, let's now invest in climate and just open funds, and then people just opening companies because there is some money to be made out of it. We need to let the market also decide, yeah, what is important. So very important point what you mentioned, but I think also maybe the market is not there yet. Maybe there is some other reasons, right, to really think about.
I would like to thank everyone and just give one last word to all panelists, and we'll start with Farrukh right now from that side. So just a couple of words. How do you feel about hosting the COP? All of you who have here first time in Baku, and how does it feel for the hosts of the country? And just a couple of words about future perspectives.
Thank you. Actually, this is my first day at COP. So I was in the US the last few weeks, so it's a great experience. I actually feeling proud of hosting this kind of event. it actually also creates, as we mentioned, like demand for being more green, and then like every country goes through a kind of evolution, and there are countries like some Western countries that have been going through this many years ago, like they started many years ago, and in Azerbaijan we're starting this journey as well, and I believe this is very important. The country, the government understands it, and we are taking steps. And the COP actually, this event actually boosts this impact, and hopefully in the coming years, Azerbaijan will become one of the leading in this region in green energy.
I have nothing to say from a local perspective besides that it's been really exciting to be at events and meet folks that aren't in climate but are engaging because COP is here and they're interested to learn more and like what people are thinking about and what are some of the challenge and statements that can be brought in country. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, also nothing on the local, but great to be here, as I said earlier. And I used to work for the ITU, and I see in the back the top guy of the ITU, Dr. Jamusi. We've seen it from the UN side of it, so now it's interesting to see it from the investment side of it. We definitely need more investors coming to COP, I think, and we were discussing that as well. But hopefully this is going to grow more and more, and activities like the Green Zone, I think it's pushing that. But this COP has been really great, and so grateful again to be here in Azerbaijan and enjoy it. And thanks to Eva and her team for organizing the panel.
No, just quick word to thank Azerbaijan and especially the resident of Baku to bear all these blue badges around the city. And so thank you for generosity, and it was great experience and discovering Baku as well.
Yeah, maybe as a host country, so I'll share a small anecdote here. So the first time I came here, so my first day here was 2 days ago, and I've been here, and then I went to Green Zone, and there was not enough oxygen, so I felt like maybe they were trying to simulate how does it feel to have 1.5 degree increase. But thankfully, 1 day was more than enough to experience that. So I think that felt very strongly, headaches and so forth. So I think I love the drive, the dynamic, and I'm sure like there's a lot of benefits from the connections that everyone is getting. So hopefully this is just it will not finish by COP, but it will be a start for something more meaningful down the line. And I guess the best way to get the most value out of this is to either offer your problems and seek for solutions, or offer your solutions and hopefully someone react to this and try to build a relationship there. But thank you very much for the panel. It was definitely much appreciated.
Thank you, dear panelists, everyone who listened. So great ending. We would like to build relationship, as everyone said. It's just the start. So COPs we always use as this beacon of the year, and we would like everyone to benefit for all the connections that we make all around in the pavilion and outside. Thank you very much.
I see